Hey, this is Nick Williams, and you're watching Medicare Millionaire. In this video, we're going to talk about telling stories, maybe even telling jokes. We're talking about stories and jokes and how they can be utilized as tools and to what end do they serve you and why you should use them. So I'm going to go down a list of reasons. I'm going to start by saying I am not a joke teller naturally at all. So it takes a certain cadence and timing to tell a joke. It's not something that is inherent for me. I should say it's not natural for me to tell jokes. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell a joke. It's more of a riddle. So just to kind of, just for the fun of it and to make a point. Okay. Why would you need stories as tools? Why do you need to have stories in your presentation? And I want you to understand that some people are not relaxed enough to just tell stories, but it's the easiest thing in the world to do. Some people are not relaxed enough to try to get the client to laugh or joke with the client. But why would you do it? Number one, you want people to like you. It humanizes you. That's very simple. Very, very simple. Number two is to break a pattern. If you're going in the wrong direction, it almost feels like you're falling in a hole, a dark hole with your prospect that you just don't want to be in. In other words, your presentation is going south. Tell a story, tell a joke, get out of there. It can change everything. It breaks the pattern. I want to tell you this story. I worked with this guy. I always call him the Great George Deers. He was the #1 agent with a company called American Amicable, a small company out of Texas. Many years ago, he was the #1 agent, and I worked with him. He was one of the few managers that I ever worked with, and he was the general agent of the agency I worked with. He's one of the few people that I ever worked with that ever took time to really teach how to sell. And he would say, Nick, you got to tell stories. And he would do this. And I'm going to give you this example, how he would break the pattern. This is less of a story than just kind of an interesting thing that he would do to break the pattern. So, and I would go out with him once in a while. He would want to take an agent out to train, and I would go out with him, and he would say, watch when I am going to say something that's significant, I'll give you a little kick under the table. And he would just kick my foot under the table. So, and we were selling life insurance back then. It was financial planning type life insurance. What he would do, in this one instance, I remember like it was yesterday, he basically gave me a little kick under the table, and then he leaned back in his chair and just very casually said, you don't understand what I'm talking about, do you? And the people looked at him like, what? He said, you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? And he would go on to tell a story. And this story was about a little girl whose father died. And years later, she went to college, and there was a father-daughter day at the college, and the daughter was sitting on the steps of like the meeting area where all the parents and children were coming and going, or students were coming and going. And one of her friends stopped with their parents, and they said, well, of course she said that her father had died when she was young, so she has no father-daughter day. And they said, well, that must have been tough. And the girl said, no, it wasn't tough financially. And because my father took care of us, he bought life insurance and we were well taken care of. College was all paid for. He really cared about us. And he would tell this story. And the people would be like, boom, right back in. And he could go, then he would just lean forward, but he would like lean back. And so he would break this pattern. And he would do this type of stuff all the time. He would tell stories about sitting on the porch. Like I actually saw him tell people, just close your eyes for a minute. Just humor me. Close your eyes. And he would say, imagine you're retired. You're sitting on your porch. You're in your rocking chair. What do you see? Do you have a travel camper there that you get out and visit your family with, or take vacations? Or do you have your grandchildren there? And he would just paint this picture. And it was wonderful. He was a great salesman. He was the #1 salesman in the company. So, all right, break the pattern. Break the pattern. Number 3, make a point. Pretty simple. You tell a story. The conclusion of the story is to make the point that you were trying to make in your presentation. So, and I don't have a good example for you there, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. You want people to relate to you. You want people to know that you're, number 1 was to humanize yourself. So that people like you. Number 4 is also, you want people to relate to you. So, and you want to relate to them. Now, I'll tell you a story that I often tell. And by the way, I use some of George Deere's stories, the great George Deere's. I will tell a story when people talk about, because we work with old people, I talk about my mom who passed of cancer. And now my dad has passed several years back as well. But I'm going to tell the story about my mom. She did have cancer and I was her caretaker. So and when I say caretaker, it wasn't so bad because my mom was able to take care of herself. You know, she got the chemo and her hair fell out and, you know, you go back and you're going back to the cancer center and I'm taking her to the meetings. I'm taking her down to a different hospital system when she was uncomfortable. Is there anything else I can do? Because we knew she was dying. So I took her to another hospital system. I'm in upstate of South Carolina. I took her down to the coast, MUSC. It's a teaching hospital. So we thought we'd get a second opinion there. You know, so I'm toting her around and helping her, just being there for her, just stopping by and spending a little time with her as she was dying. And it was something that I felt very proud to do for my mom. And I can tell this to people. I can tell this story to people because they are going through the same things with loved ones in their family. So I can relate to them. And that's important. And that now I'm, you know, not only are they starting to like me, because maybe I told some stupid jokes, they can relate to me. I can relate to them. And that's important. Okay. Address an issue. That's number 5. So number 1, get people to like you or humanize yourself. Number 2, break a pattern, a bad pattern. Number 3, to make a point. Number 4, to relate to people. They're going through a situation. As you get older, and this is harder for younger people, I suppose. It was harder for me when I was younger, but as you get older, you can certainly relate to individuals in their situations that they have in their lives because you probably have dealt with similar things in your life. Number 5, address an issue. Now, I am going to tell you a story here. I worked with an agent years ago, about 10 years ago, and he had a child. He was not a kid by any means, but he looked very young and he talked about it. And I told him, I said, look, give him the story. And the story was that I told him to tell is that he would have to go in and establish he's a father, he's a professional, and that this is his livelihood, that he's not a kid, even though he looks like it. But it was a story. I told him, tell this story. And you know what? He came back and he was like, hey, Nick, that worked. Now, this is just an agent I worked with. I was just an agent as well. But it was great because he was able to tell a story to address an issue before it was an issue. So this would be when he would sit down like in a warm-up. Like, hey, I want you to know I'm just a kid. I may look like just a kid, but I'm a father. I'm a professional. This is my career. I care about it, and I care about you, and I care that you're taken care of. And so don't let my youthful appearance fool you. Man, what does that do, right? Story. Is that a story? Yeah, you can say it's a story. But you've got to be comfortable to do these things. Now, let me see. You need these stories to be in your bag. Just like I've got my Medicare and You book. I've got a scope of appointment forms. I have scope of appointment forms. I have generic scope of appointment forms. I got company specific scope of appointment forms, and I got stories that I pull out. in situations. So that, and you'll collect stories. If you don't have them on the top of your head, you need to start thinking about this and saying, what stories am I going to use when? Now you could say, well, that may, like I talk about my mother. Well, I love my mom. I am not using that in any way that I would feel cheapens anything. It's a real story. It helps me relate to somebody. I get to talk about my mom. Okay. And I love that. When I was young, it was harder to be successful in this business. I would find myself with dead time. I would find myself in awkward situations. I would find myself having difficulty segueing from one topic to another topic. That's what stories do. They fill in these gaps. They kill dead time. They take away awkwardness. You could tell a story about being awkward. I was just telling a story to an agent. I'll tell you another story. I once did, I was sitting here. I had an agent with me yesterday, I believe, for training. And this agent does annuity seminars as well. And we were sitting there talking, and I told him about an annuity seminar that I did, that I got so many people that came to the seminar that they piled up. It was like incredible. It was like the turnout was like phenomenal. And it was at a steakhouse here in Greenville, South Carolina. They had the tables right up to me. So like there was a person sitting right here. It was so awkward. I bombed. It was so awkward. It was like I couldn't move. I couldn't really turn. And it was just bad planning, created a bad situation. And I bombed the seminar. I paid a lot of money for that seminar, and it was just a terrible mess. It's a story, so that agent, I relate to that agent, we just kind of, so we can identify with, and relate to each other by telling these stories. Same thing with the client. All right. Why is this part of the very best presentation ever? Well, it's kind of simple, isn't it? You want clients to like you. Why do you want your clients to like you? Why do you want your clients to relate to you? Why do you want your clients to think you're a good guy, good woman, good person, whatever, good girl? So that you can sell them insurance, and you can cross-sell them insurance, so that they'll refer you to other people, so that they will like you and they won't buy from the next agent that comes in the door, right? All these reasons, the list goes on and on and on. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you this joke. It's more of a riddle. Okay. 3 frogs are sitting on a log. One decides to jump off. How many are left? We'll give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. There's 3 frogs left on the log. Just because you make a decision doesn't mean that anything happens. So you decide to be a better agent, you decide you're going to work harder, doesn't mean anything. Decisions are irrelevant to your success. You must make a decision to get to an action, which is what you need. You need to take action. You need to do things. You need to not talk about them. You need to stop making empty decisions, which just cheapen yourself over time. It's basically you compromise yourself. This is what I'm going to start doing next week, tomorrow, this AEP. No, you have to do it. Stop making decisions, empty decisions. That's like empty promises, but they're promises to yourself. So that's it. I'll leave you right there. Like this video, subscribe to Medicare Millionaire on YouTube or wherever else you're seeing this, and share this video with other agents if you can. We'll see you later.